Hey there, folks. If you want to stay up to date with all the latest weather updates and important alerts, make sure you follow Sky Alert USA. We'd really appreciate your support, so go ahead and subscribe, like, and drop a comment below to let us know what you think. Stick around for this video and all the ones coming up. Sky Alert USA. Weather Report. January 21st, 2026. Catastrophic winter storm threatens 150 million Americans. Good day, weather watchers. This is Sky Alert USA bringing you an urgent weather update for January 21st, 2026. Today, we're tracking what meteorologists are calling the most extreme winter weather event of the season, with potentially catastrophic impacts across more than half the United States and significant winter conditions affecting Canada. Today's critical weather situation. As of Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, North America is experiencing a massive convergence of dangerous weather systems. A brutal Arctic blast is gripping the continent, while a major winter storm is organizing to deliver devastating ice and heavy snow from Texas to Massachusetts. The scope and severity of this event cannot be overstated. The Arctic invasion, record-breaking cold. The primary driver of today's dangerous weather is an intense Arctic air mass that has plunged southward from Canada, bringing the coldest temperatures of the winter season to the eastern two-thirds of the United States. This is not a typical winter cold snap. This is a prolonged, potentially life-threatening cold outbreak influenced by a disrupted polar vortex in the stratosphere. Current temperature situation. Across the northern plains and upper Midwest, temperatures have already plummeted to dangerous levels. The Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin are experiencing extreme cold conditions, with actual air temperatures struggling to reach 10 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. In many locations, highs are expected to remain below zero throughout Thursday and Friday. Wind chill values are even more alarming. The Twin Cities are experiencing wind chills plunging to minus 20 degrees, with some northern communities approaching minus 30 to minus 40 degrees. At these temperatures, frostbite can occur on exposed skin in as little as 10 minutes. Montana has issued extreme cold warnings along the Canadian border, with wind chills potentially reaching minus 50 degrees in isolated areas. The National Weather Service has issued cold weather advisories and warnings for over 25 states, affecting approximately 100 million Americans. Cities that typically experience milder winter conditions are facing the coldest temperatures of the season. Indianapolis will see temperatures drop from the low 60s on Sunday to the mid-20s on Monday. A stunning 30-degree plunge in just 24 hours. The Arctic invasion is not stopping at the Great Lakes. By Thursday and Friday, this frigid air mass will spread into the south and east coast. Freeze warnings extend from southern Georgia down into northern Florida, where temperatures could drop low enough to trigger the infamous falling iguana phenomenon, when the tropical reptiles become immobilized by cold and, well, literally fall from trees. Major metropolitan areas including Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis and Des Moines will experience single-digit temperatures with dangerous wind chills. The northeast corridor from Washington, D.C. to Boston is bracing for the coldest air of the winter thus far, with Monday and Tuesday morning potentially marking the season's lowest temperatures. Overlaying this Arctic blast is a developing winter storm system that forecasters are describing as potentially catastrophic. This high-impact weather event will spread snow and ice across more than 24 states from Friday through the weekend, affecting over 150 million people. The winter storm will begin impacting Texas on Friday, then track through the Deep South and Tennessee Valley before reaching the southeast coast and eventually the northeast by Sunday. The system's prolonged duration and extensive geographic reach make it particularly dangerous. AccuWeather chief meteorologist Jonathan Porter warns that potentially hundreds of thousands of people may go without electricity and heat for days. Former NOAA chief scientist Ryan Maue called this a widespread, potentially catastrophic event from Texas to the Carolinas. A significant swath of heavy, plowable snow is setting up from northeast New Mexico and northwest Texas, extending through Kansas and northern Oklahoma, all the way to southeastern New York, New Jersey, and central and southern New England. Major metropolitan areas in the direct path include Dallas-Austin, Oklahoma City, Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. Snowfall totals will vary significantly based on exact storm track, but many areas could receive 6 to 12 inches of accumulation. Some locations, particularly in the southern plains and mid-Atlantic, may experience their biggest snowfall of the winter season. The National Weather Service. Weather Prediction Center indicates high confidence in accumulating snow across Middle Tennessee from Friday through Sunday, with significant travel impacts expected throughout the weekend. Perhaps the most concerning aspect of this winter storm is the extensive ice accumulation expected across the south. Areas ill-equipped to handle winter precipitation will face devastating ice accumulations that could bring down power lines and trees, creating dangerous and prolonged power outages. The interaction between Arctic air pushing southward and moisture streaming northward from the Gulf of Mexico will create a prime setup for freezing rain. A push of Arctic air from the north will determine the northern edge of snow, the southern extent of ice, and where a dangerous mix of both occurs. Southern portions of Middle Tennessee face the highest risk for ice accumulations. In areas where thick glazes of ice form, scores of trees and power lines may come down. The weight of ice on power infrastructure, combined with tree limbs falling on lines, could leave hundreds of thousands without power. In regions with limited ice-melting supplies and snow removal equipment, recovery could take days or even a week. Roads in the southern plains and Mississippi Valley could become completely clogged. These areas are not equipped to handle even light snow, let alone several inches combined with ice. Schools and childcare centres may be closed for extended periods. Travel will become extremely hazardous or impossible across wide areas. While the main storm system dominates headlines, another significant winter weather phenomenon is ongoing across the Great Lakes region. Multiple clipper systems moving through from the Canadian Rockies are triggering intense lake-effect snow bands. A northwesterly flow is enhancing lake-effect snow downwind of all 5 Great Lakes, with particularly heavy localized bands near the eastern and southern shores. Areas near Lake Ontario are experiencing some of the heaviest accumulations. These narrow but intense snow bands can produce several inches per hour, drastically reducing visibility and creating treacherous travel conditions. The Weather Prediction Center forecasts a corridor of warm advection, and associated frontogenesis will drive an east-west-oriented snow band spreading from the northern plains into the upper Midwest. Northwestern Iowa and southern Wisconsin face 20 to 30% probability of receiving more than 4 inches of snow, increasing to 50 to 75% probability over southwestern Michigan. Canada is feeling the full force of winter right now, and, well, the impacts stretch from coast to coast. In Ontario and Quebec, Toronto is currently under a yellow warning for snowfall, issued by Environment Canada. An Alberta clipper is pushing into the region, with snow starting Wednesday morning and impacting the morning commute. Folks can expect snowfall amounts near 10 centimetres, with poor visibility in heavy snow and some local blowing snow. The snow should ease through the afternoon or early evening, but it could still mess with the evening drive. Travel throughout southern Ontario is honestly pretty tough today. Roads and walkways are tricky to navigate thanks to the accumulating snow, and rush hour traffic is taking a real hit. Visibility drops at times, and residents are being told to allow extra time for travel. Now, Ontario is also facing concerns about freezing rain. A rapidly intensifying low-pressure system tracked across the Great Lakes, bringing prolonged freezing rain over the weekend. Areas north and east of Toronto, places like Newmarket, Aurora, Georgina, Uxbridge, Cobourg and Colborne, saw 5 to 10 millimetres of ice accretion. That's enough to create hazardous roads and the risk of power outages. Quebec's had similar troubles, with freezing rain warnings for Greater Montreal, Laval, Montérégie, the Laurentians, Lanaudière and the Outaouais. The switch from rain to freezing rain as temperatures hover near freezing has led to icy roads, falling tree branches and power disruptions in some spots. Over in the prairie provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan and Manitoba, folks are dealing with bitter cold and blizzard conditions. Arctic air masses are dominating, with dangerous wind chills and a deep freeze expected to stick around through January and February. These areas are seeing the classic Canadian winter pattern. Extreme cold, Alberta clippers bringing whiteouts and more snow. Up in the Yukon and Northwest Territories, the conditions are, well, about as harsh as it gets. Some parts of Yukon are under extreme cold warnings, with temperatures dropping to near -50 degrees Celsius. At those levels, you really have to limit outdoor exposure, and folks are urged to take serious precautions against frostbite. Environment Canada is warning that conditions can change real fast in these regions. Meanwhile, coastal British Columbia is a stark contrast. While they get the odd warm spell, the region's been hit by Pacific storm systems, bringing heavy rain, high winds and localised flooding concerns. Dense fog has been an issue in parts of BC and Alberta, with near-zero visibility making travel hazardous. Let's take a look at what to expect over the next few days. On Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, the Arctic blast ramps up across the central United States. The northern plains to the upper Midwest will see extreme cold, with temperatures likely dropping to between 20 and 30 degrees below zero by Friday morning. Wind chills could hit -50 in some spots, especially across the Dakotas and northern Minnesota. Even the high temperatures are going to stay below zero through Saturday in the upper Midwest. The winter storm also starts targeting Texas and the southern plains. Snow and ice will move into northeast Texas, Oklahoma and Kansas. Dallas and Oklahoma City will see conditions go downhill through the day and into the evening, so if you have to travel, try to finish up before nightfall. Much colder than average temperatures will spread south into the Central Plains and push toward the Gulf Coast and East Coast. Cities from Denver to Nashville to Charlotte will feel the chill as the Arctic front moves in. Lake-effect snow keeps hammering the Great Lakes region, with more accumulations expected, especially downwind of Lake Erie in Ontario. Buffalo, Syracuse and Erie are in for more heavy snow bands. In Canada, cold and snowy conditions stick around in Ontario and Quebec, with another clipper system possibly bringing even more snow. The prairie provinces remain stuck in extreme cold, while coastal BC deals with ongoing Pacific moisture, rain and wind. On Friday, January 23rd, this becomes the most critical day of the winter storm for the South and Mid-Atlantic. The storm will be in full swing from Texas through Tennessee, Georgia and the Carolinas. Heavy snow will fall across a broad area from the southern plains to the Tennessee Valley. The transition zone between snow and ice brings the most dangerous conditions, with significant ice likely from central Texas through Arkansas, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, Alabama and Georgia. Atlanta could see a crippling winter storm with dangerous amounts of snow and ice, and Nashville might get significant snowfall totals. Charlotte and the Carolinas will start seeing wintry precipitation, with both snow and ice possible. The Arctic air mass reaches its farthest point south. Freeze warnings will be in effect from the Gulf Coast through northern Florida. Even southern Texas will dip below freezing. Orlando could see temperatures in the upper 30s, cold enough to threaten sensitive plants and outdoor pipes. The upper Midwest stays in a deep freeze, with dangerous, life-threatening cold. Des Moines, Minneapolis, Milwaukee and Chicago will all be well below zero with extreme wind chills. Outdoor activities should be minimized, and folks need to be extremely careful if they must be outside. The Northeast will start to feel the effects of the advancing storm. Winter storm watches and warnings will go up from Virginia through Pennsylvania into New York and New England. The I-95 corridor from Washington, D.C. to Boston is getting ready for significant winter weather. In Canada, the storm's northern edge could bring more snow and ice to southern Ontario. Quebec will keep dealing with cold and periodic snow. Western Canada stays locked in a deep freeze, with more Alberta clippers. On Saturday, January 24th, the winter storm hits the mid-Atlantic and northeast, bringing heavy snow and ice to the most densely populated part of the country. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City and Boston will all get significant winter weather. The exact snowfall totals depend on the storm's track, but 6 to 12 inches are possible, with locally higher amounts. Ice is still a big concern from Virginia through the Carolinas and back into Tennessee and Arkansas. Power outages will be widespread in the south, and getting the lights back on will be tough with ongoing winter weather and bad roads. Some places could be without power for several days. The extreme cold holds on across the plains and Midwest, though it might ease up a bit compared to Friday. Still, any snow and ice that fell won't be melting, so travel disruptions and power outages will stick around into early next week. Southern states that got rare winter weather on Friday will be dealing with lingering impacts. Road crews in areas not used to snow and ice will be working non-stop, but travel will remain tricky. Schools and businesses will be closed across wide areas. The Northeast Corridor will see the worst of the storm Saturday afternoon and evening. Coastal areas might get some sleet or rain mixed in, but inland spots will get all snow. New England could see big accumulations, especially in interior Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire and Maine. In Canada, Ontario and Quebec could see the storm's tail end bring more snow Saturday night into Sunday. The prairies will stay extremely cold, and British Columbia's weather remains unsettled with Pacific moisture. By Sunday, January 25th, the winter storm starts to move away from the northeast, but there will still be lingering snow showers and lake-effect snow. New England will see the storm depart, but the snow totals will be significant, and the cold will keep things from melting. Across the South and Mid-Atlantic, the focus shifts to recovery. Temperatures will stay well below freezing, keeping roads icy and snow-covered. Power restoration will keep going, but with so much damage, some places could be without power for several more days. The Arctic air mass will start to ease up, but temperatures will still be well below average across the eastern two-thirds of the country. Any snow and ice on the ground will stick around, extending the impacts into the new work week. Travel will slowly get better as crews make progress, but many roads will still be hazardous. Airlines will be scrambling to recover from massive disruptions, but flight cancellations will ripple for several days. In Canada, the weather will start to shift toward milder conditions next week, but winter weather will stick around through Sunday. A January thaw is expected early the following week, with above-freezing temperatures and even some rain for Ontario, Quebec and the Maritimes. This winter weather event really calls for serious preparation and caution. Here are some critical safety measures everyone should keep in mind. For the extreme cold, never underestimate just how dangerous it can get. When temperatures drop below -20 degrees Fahrenheit, frostbite can set in on exposed skin in as little as 10 minutes. Dress in layers. Start with a moisture-wicking base, add some insulation, and top it off with a windproof outer layer. Make sure your face, hands and feet are covered. Check in on elderly neighbours and anyone vulnerable, and make sure they have enough heat and supplies. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a real risk during extreme cold, especially if folks use alternative heating sources the wrong way. Never use generators, grills or camp stoves indoors. Protect your home by letting faucets drip a bit if your pipes are on exterior walls, and know where your main water shutoff is in case pipes freeze and burst. Keep garage doors closed to help protect water pipes, and make sure your heating system is working before the coldest weather hits. For your vehicle, always keep at least half a tank of gas to prevent fuel line freezing. If your battery's more than 3 years old, get it tested. Cold weather really saps battery power. Check your tyre pressure every week, since cold makes it drop. Keep an emergency kit in your car: blankets, food, water, flashlight, first aid supplies, and a phone charger. Now for the winter storm. Try to finish all essential travel before the storm arrives. Once the snow and ice start, road conditions go downhill fast. If you must travel, let someone know your route and when you expect to arrive. Keep your phone charged. Stock up on supplies now. You might not be able to leave home for several days. Have at least 3 days of food and water for everyone in your household, and don't forget pet food and any medications you'll need. Fill your prescriptions ahead of time. Be ready for power outages that could last for days. Have flashlights and batteries on hand. Don't use candles, since they're a fire hazard. If you have a generator, make sure it's installed properly and only use it outdoors with good ventilation. Never run generators in garages or near windows. Charge all your devices before the storm and have a battery-powered or hand-crank weather radio. Download important documents and contacts to your phone in case you lose internet access. For ice storm impacts. If you lose power during an ice storm, you're facing the double threat of no heat during extreme cold. Know where warming centres are in your community and don't wait until you're in crisis. If your home gets dangerously cold, seek shelter before it becomes a medical emergency. Stay away from downed power lines and report them immediately. Always assume downed lines are live and deadly. Ice-covered tree branches can fall without warning, so avoid parking under trees and be cautious walking outside. If you need to remove ice, be extremely careful. Ice on steps, sidewalks and driveways can be nearly impossible to clear and creates a big fall risk. Sand or kitty litter can help with traction where you can't get rid of the ice. So, why is all this happening? Understanding the atmospheric mechanisms behind this extreme weather really helps us appreciate just how severe and long-lasting it can be. Let's start with the polar vortex disruption. The main driver of this prolonged cold is a disrupted polar vortex. Normally, the polar vortex is a big area of low pressure and cold air that sits up near the poles, kind of acting like a guardian to keep all that frigid air trapped in the Arctic. But in late December 2025, a stratospheric, sudden warming event shook things up and disrupted the vortex. When that happens, when the polar vortex gets split or knocked off balance, it lets Arctic air spill southward into the mid-latitudes. This isn't just a quick cold snap. It's a pattern change that can last for weeks. The southern lobe of the vortex has slammed into North America, setting up what's called a meridional flow. That's just a fancy way of saying air masses are moving north-south instead of the usual west-east. This creates a blocking high-pressure system over western North America and a deep trough over the eastern half of the continent. All of that sets up an open corridor for frigid Arctic air to keep pouring south from Canada into the United States. We can expect multiple Arctic blasts to continue through late January with this setup. Now, the winter storm itself is forming right along the boundary between that Arctic air and warmer, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. The temperature contrast is what gives the storm its energy. As the low-pressure system develops and tracks from the southern plains toward the northeast, it pulls moisture north from the Gulf. The key factor that decides who gets snow, ice or rain is the exact position of the freezing line, which depends on how far south the Arctic air pushes. Where Arctic air is firmly in place, you get heavy snow. Where warmer air rides up and over the cold surface air, a process called overrunning, you end up with freezing rain and those dangerous ice storm conditions. The storm is moving slowly, so impacts stick around longer. Instead of just a few hours of snow, some places will get winter weather for 12 to 24 hours or more, allowing for big accumulations. Lake effect snow is another part of this. The Great Lakes region is getting hammered because Arctic air is blowing over the relatively warmer lake waters. When that cold air moves over open water, it warms up a bit and picks up moisture through evaporation. That moisture-rich air then dumps intense snow bands downwind of the lakes. The temperature difference between the lake water, usually in the 30s, and the frigid Arctic air creates instability and really ramps up snow production. These bands can drop several inches of snow per hour